Hey, what's up? Thank you for clicking To The Brim podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on Spotify. Enjoy this episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back to The Brim, another episode here. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Molly Turner. I will let her introduce herself, but this is To The Brim, a podcast that is dedicated to hear everyone's story and how could we apply to the brim moments, opportunities, and experiences to better our lives and become better individuals. So, Molly, introduce yourself to...
Hello. I am Molly Turner. I am originally from Topeka, Kansas. I moved to Independence. We've been here for maybe 16, 17 years. So, yes, me and my husband, and we have 2 children and a grandson.
2 children. And she probably wants to give a special shout out to Tracy Lum.
Yes, Tracy. Thank you. Tracy, thank you.
for
nominating me.
Nominating her. She's like, you need to hear her story. She has a powerful story. So with that being said, I want to ask you the first question that I ask everyone that comes in to The Brim is, who are you? Who is Molly Turner?
So I am I'm a victim coordinator with the Kansas Department of Corrections. So I work with the victims of the offenders that are in prison and on parole.
Wow.
I've been doing that for a long time. I've been doing it for 25 years. I am also a proud grandmother. My 14-year-old grandson, that's my world. Other than that, that's about me. I love basketball. I love sports. I love watching it. And
so what is that victim program?
Victim notification coordinator. So what I do is I work with the victims of the offenders in prison. So that could be the victims that want to have a relationship when they get out. There's people that don't want a relationship, so we do safety planning with them. We go to public comment sessions with them, and if they're opposing or supporting the offenders in prison, and but yeah, we do it all. I mean, we want offenders to be successful too. So.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So is it like domestic violence or?
Oh yeah, a lot of domestic violence. It could be a lot of sex molestation.
Oh wow!
All that kind of stuff. Yeah. So there's a lot of challenges that come with the job. You know, things that people that you kind of wonder why they would still want, but you have to be where the victim is and meet them at their place.
And it's something that you always wanted to do? How did you get involved
in it? You know, I have always worked in corrections. I worked in the jail for a long time.
Hold up. You worked in a jail?
Yeah. Yes. I worked in the county jail, and then I worked in the parole office. And so then victim services position opened up, and I thought, maybe I'll go try that on the other side of it.
So in Miami terms, you're about that life. Like, you're not afraid.
No. Because
what?
I kind of had a little bit of that life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when I would work in the parole office, there were people that would come in on parole that, I partied with them at one time. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So they were kind of shocked to see me on the other side, and they were like, wait, are you the police, Molly? And I'm like, no, I'm not the police. I just work here.
I'm just working here. I'm trying to help you guys out.
Yeah.
Wow. So obviously that tells me that you're not afraid of challenges or conflict resolution.
No.
So when you got involved in that, was it like you felt called to it? What's the background in that story? Like, how did Molly Turner come into the terms like, you know what, I want to be invested in this field?
Because I think the thing is, if you have lived that life, like I had experienced domestic violence in my life.
Oh, wow.
So I have struggled with addiction. I have struggled with all that. So I feel like I was called to that because I feel like I can relate. Although I would never bring up my past. I don't ever bring up my past to anyone like, oh, I know what you're going through. But in my mind, I do. Yeah. So it's very easy for people to blame victims for staying. It's very easy for people to say, well, they must not like their children, they can't stop using. And that's all not true. So wow. I just felt, that's why I felt really called to it, is because I feel like I could relate to them.
So there's so much questions I have in my head. That's super. I think it's amazing when somebody is vulnerable real enough to say, I could relate to their story because I was once in that story.
Yes.
But now I'm in the other side trying to help them.
Yes.
So what was it for you to notice that? Like, to say, I'm done with addiction. I'm done with this abusive relationship. I'm gonna defend myself.
So I'm just gonna put it all out there. So my daughter's father, he lived kind of a wild life, and so I kind of lived that wild life with him, and that's when the using started happening. It got bad where he was a dealer at one time, and so we lived a great life, and then he started like dabbling in his stuff. And then it started getting really scary because then, he's going to people's houses and running out, and I'm driving off, like kind of like a Bonnie and Clyde is what I felt like.
Yeah.
And he ended up going to prison is what stopped that life.
Wow.
That was a different addiction. So then I started drinking, which I've always drank, but it got to the point where it was kind of out of control. And my father was an alcoholic. He died in a car accident. I believe alcoholism is hereditary. I believe it can kind of be in your DNA. You can either stop the cycle or not. So
it's like a generational curse almost. Like you choose to
yes.
to stop it or not.
And it's like domestic violence.
Yeah.
My dad always was bad. My grandpa was bad. Well, you can stop.
Yeah.
You can stop that.
You have the power.
Yes, absolutely.
So Molly Turner experienced XYZ. She experienced all this hard stuff that people in life are sometimes think they can't overcome. This is who I am. It's written.
Yes.
Then you say, I'm drawing the line. I'm going to overcome this. And I'm not only going to overcome it, but now I'm going to be somebody who helps people who are going through that journey. Now, when you transition, what was it for what was it like for Molly in that process? Was it because, a lot of the viewers or listeners that could probably relate to your story could probably find themselves thinking, maybe she's just special. Maybe it's just Molly is like, she's just one of the ones. What could you tell somebody who's watching this, who's right now in the middle of a domestic violence relationship and is struggling with addiction, but feels like they're not the one to overcome that generational cycle?
I would say the first thing I would say about domestic violence is do what you need to do to keep yourself safe and your children safe. It's easy for the world to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
But to be honest, when someone is leaving a domestic violent relationship and there's kids involved, that becomes the most lethal. I mean, that's when it becomes the most dangerous. And so I would just say to them, it's tough. It is tough because there's a lot of, I'm going to say women, but there are women who are batters too. So, but the majority is men. So I don't want to act like there's no women.
Yeah,
batters.
you don't want to. Yeah.
Right, but for the majority, what we work with is the women are the victims and the men are the batters, and it's just it's a scary situation because the truth is, these women love these men. They just want them to stop hitting them, and it's very hard. And so it's hard to kind of talk to women to say, because they think, oh, well, he's drinking, and that's what. No, because there's a lot of people who drink that are not violent with their partner. Yeah. And so I would just say, it's safety planning is tough because, is he the breadwinner? Is he, and then we don't even talk about our Hispanic world who maybe aren't even legally here.
Yeah.
The men know those women cannot go turn them in because now they have kids, and now you and I are going to go back, but our children aren't because they're here. And so it's really, that's where it gets really tough. Because you want people to trust you, and that's the other thing, you can't judge. You gotta, and I would say anybody that knows anybody that, it's hard because you're like, why don't you just leave? Why don't you just leave?
Yeah, because from the outside in, it could look like it's just simple. Just walk away.
Yeah.
But obviously we know, if you come from that background or you've been in circles like that, it's not just walk
it's not.
away.
It's tough. And so I would say anybody that knows somebody, just be supportive of that person. Even if it's your 19th time, open the door to them.
Come on.
Be the 20th, because that 20th time might be the time that,
And I love that because the Bible, obviously you guys know I'm a pastor, and the Bible tells us to always expect the best from everyone.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I always try to live my life by is the grace of God. Like, I'm always going to try to extend my grace, even when I know the person in front of me might betray me again.
Right.
Like, might just bite the hand of again.
Yeah.
But I always try to live a life that is abundantly gracious, because what if that, like you said, what if it's the 20th time?
Yes.
And in the 20th time they go, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm ready. So I love that about you. And I heard great things about you through Tracy and my wife. Every time you guys you guys had like a celebrating some friend's birthday party, and she comes and is like, Molly's so funny. She's just hilarious. So I always hear exciting things about you, and just to hear you share your story and not be ashamed of your story, but in fact embrace your story because you know your story is helping people.
Right.
And I would have never. I look at you on Sundays and I'm like,
Right.
she got it all put together. Look at her smile. Like, look at her beautiful family. And then now I'm meeting the person behind the smile, and it's deep. It's like everyone has a story, and that's the amazing thing about us humans is that every single one of us has a story to tell. So what was it like in your childhood? What was it like growing up in Topeka, Kansas? Because there's listeners from Miami, there's listeners from different states, and a lot of my friends think I just automatically turn into a farmer. So I want them to hear from a Kansan what it's like to grow up in Kansas.
So Kansas, where I'm from, Topeka, is a bigger city. We probably have, 15 high schools maybe. And so when I moved here, I felt like it was really country, and I hated it when I moved here. I couldn't believe I even moved here. But yeah, growing up, I went to a predominantly all black high school. We were sports folks growing up. I never played sports because school wasn't my thing, and so I more wanted to skip and party and all that kind of stuff. But I loved going to the games and stuff. But I grew up. My mom and dad. I grew up I have one sister. My mom and dad. My dad was the breadwinner. He made decent money. He always took care of us. He was an alcoholic. So I saw like my mom and dad didn't have the best relationship because, he would, drink and then they would fight, and that's what I saw, and not physically, but just verbal. And that's what I think people need to understand too. It's domestic violence isn't always just
physical.
Yes. It can be
verbal.
Money. It can be verbal. It can just be. And so, I can't blame anything. I think I had a pretty good childhood because I never needed for anything.
Oh, wow.
Like my dad, we always got what we needed. And then, it was my choice in a relationship is where my life kind of went sour.
I like that because I think a lot of people always think, oh, you never know where they came from, so it's probably something. And it's like, no, some people are just like, you can have the best parents, you can grow up in a perfect house, quote unquote perfect household, but it's your decisions at the end of the day is the decisions you desire to indulge in. One of the things I was speaking to one of my guests not too long ago was your environment doesn't determine who you are. Your decisions in that environment determine who you are. Because I know kids that were A and B and good grades, great households, and turned out to be savages. And I'm like, how? And then it's the environment that they decided to indulge in. So I got another question for you. Obviously, we know that you grew up in Topeka, Kansas, which for all those who are watching and don't know about Kansas, Kansas is a big state. There's different sides of Kansas. There's not just farmers. There's some semi-city people, you could say. We got Wichita, we got Topeka, we got Western Kansas, I believe Eastern and Western Kansas, Eastern Kansas, and then you got us over here in the Midwest. We're like in the middle of everything. But Kansas is beautiful. I encourage you guys to come visit and check it out. So now that we got where you from, somewhat of your story in the middle, now you are a victim planner. You help people. What does that role mean to you as somebody who's helping people overcome hardships?
It's really it's challenging for the most part, but it is very rewarding when. And I hate to say rewarding because I don't want to be the one to say, "Oh, I fixed this couple."
Yeah, I did it.
But but it's very rewarding because it takes a while because. Some of the women are in their 50s. And so it's like, this is all they know, and they're not going to change, and neither is he. And so the best thing to do is let's just do what you can do to keep yourself safe.
Wow.
But then you get the younger ones who are still, even in high school. Like I even talked to my 14-year-old grandson about it. I'm like, he has some friends that I already see red flags in those 14-year-olds.
Wow.
I'm like, this is crazy. This is already controlling behavior at such a young age. And I know their parents, and their parents are nothing like that. So I don't know where they get it from. Just like you said, you can come from great families, but I already see like red flags in 14-year-olds. Do
you think it's because of the I don't want to say miseducation, but just like not the proper emotional intelligence teaching, like how to teach young men to you're angry right now. You need to take a deep breath. You need to analyze.
Yes.
Because I remember when I was in college, there was this one couple, I don't remember their names, but it was very like abusive. It was the weirdest thing I ever experienced. And to me, I come from a Puerto Rican background where in my Puerto Rican culture, women are held in like high regard. Like you never yell at a woman. You never lay a hand on a woman. So like I always saw my dad when my parents were married treat my mom with royalty. It was like kind of weird because I was like, she's mean to you, Dad. Like, why are you not? But my dad always told me as a kid, he's like, you know, you never talk about a woman. You never, like, you know, it was just women were very protected. So when I came to college and I saw this young couple and it was kind of like weird and aggressive, I was confused. I was like, how could he do that? Because in my culture, I'm like, if you ever hear anything, that dude is getting violated. Like, that dude is going to get taken care of down the street somewhere. And so young men, how could you talk to some young men right now that they have those red flags, they're witnessing somebody, like, how could they help an individual that is in that?
It's kind of like almost like we tell our men in our batters intervention group, like, you know, where it stops is like if somebody says, oh, you know, my old lady's cooking today, you know, well, what's her name? Let's not call her old lady. You know, just little things like that, you know. And, you know, we all know that people listen to songs and there's, you know, words for derogatory for women. And it's just like, I think because of what I do, I've always told my son and my grandson, like, this is what we do, this is what we don't do. If you ever feel like this, you probably need to not have that girlfriend, whatever. But I think for people like the young kids I'm talking about, their parents don't even think, you know, they're not, domestic violence isn't even in their world. So they're like, well, we wouldn't even think he would even be kind of controlled.
It's almost like they don't even think it could be near their...
Yes, and it concerns me because I'm like, someone needs to speak to them because this is already... I mean, if they're doing it at 14, I can only imagine at 18 what it's going to be like, you know, when they're going to...
Wow. So, what would you said earlier about this not your old girl, is your wife?
Yes.
That speaks honor. So we could get into the segment of honoring. So you say if you're more intentional about honoring your spouse, your relationship, it creates a healthier...
Oh, absolutely.
Because it holds like a standard, right? You have like a standard of like, hey, she's not just some girl. She's not just your girlfriend or your wife or your fiance. You know, she is the woman that God has given you to steward. That's good.
And the other thing that we is like young boys when they, you know, they're maybe hitting a baseball or something, or, you know, hey, you hit like a girl, or you're crying like a girl. That is so powerful because you're already teaching these young boys that women are weak. Like, oh, I'm not crying. I'm not a girl. So I really, when I hear people in the stands say that, I'm like, oh, don't say that. It's okay for men to cry. And I think that's what I think when we talk to our men in our batters intervention group, that's one thing they will say is they always grew up saying we cannot cry. We are men. You know, our dads would call us weak if we cried. And so people need to teach their boys that it's okay to cry. It's okay to show emotion. And, you know, don't ever say you hit like a girl. Don't ever say, oh, you're acting like a little girl now. Because it's already showing them.
Subconsciously in their mind, they're already...
you're already...
It's almost giving them like a superiority.
Yes, like women are weaker than me.
I'm not, Yes. Wow.
So, that's kind of just little things like that. Just...
That's deep because how many like I'm guilty, like, you know what I mean? Like I'm guilty of like, suck it up, bro. Like, you acting like you know?
Yes.
That's crazy because subconsciously it's going...
Absolutely.
And you automatically feel like I'm better than...
Yeah.
That's deep. That's wow. Yeah. So if you guys watch what you say, man, that's why I tell people there's power in your words.
Yes.
What you say will produce a fruit, and you better be ready to eat whatever fruit you produce. So watch what you say. I love that because who would have known? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense because there's always that debate, like, oh, but women are women and men are men. Yes. And it's almost like we're better. Wow, I never would have seen that come. That's amazing. So obviously, in this conversation that we've been having, we know what your career is. So what does Molly Turner do to enjoy the life she has? Like, what does Molly Turner enjoy to do? So what I do, I enjoy, my husband's a basketball coach, a women's college coach. So I love watching basketball. I love watching women basketball. Yeah. My grandson is an athlete, so I go to all his stuff. My son is 26. He played college ball, high school ball. So I'm one of those moms that are always in the gym. I love sports. So when sports aren't going on, I'm like, what do I do? Which is crazy because you didn't play sports. Not at all. But anybody, the way I talk, you'd think I was coaching. Yeah. No, when I saw that you and Turner were married and you're a husband and wife, I thought you was like a hooper too. I was like, he probably married like a hooper, like, and they probably are like this power couple. No. And then when you said you didn't play sports, I was like, what? Yeah. Like, I was like... Yeah. He always said, Molly, you look athletic. And I'm like, I kind of am. Yeah, you should have seen me run these hallways. Like, yeah, no, it's... that's what I ask myself sometimes. I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? I kind of have a small circle. Yeah. My family...
And I'm okay with it.
That's
I'm
good.
okay with it.
It is okay to. I think when you know your circle, when you're comfortable, I think that's very important. I think true peace comes from knowing who's in your flock, like
Yes,
knowing how big or how small your circle is.
Yes.
Because I think there's people that believe that the more the better, but I
Yeah.
think it's all about the individual. Like,
Yeah.
if you know your small circle keeps you like at peace and content, there's no reason for. So you're always in the gym. You said your grandson is
Yes,
a baller.
he's a football player. He gave up baseball, so now he's back to basketball again. So, but yeah, I'm always in a gym. Even when my grandson was injured and he couldn't play, we'd still go because those are my people too. His friends are like my boys too. They all call me Mimi. So but yeah, outside of sports, I don't really, and I've been sober since 2015.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
So let's talk about that.
Okay.
Sober since 2015. Did you struggle with alcohol?
Absolutely.
You did?
Yes.
So how did you? Because I'm pretty sure there's people that struggle with that and are like needing hope, right?
Yes.
So what is your story behind that? Like, how did you come to a realization like, I'm done, I'm not gonna drink anymore?
So there was several instances that happened to me that I should have probably said, this is enough. But you always don't. You're like, okay, I'm done until the weekend comes. And then you're like, okay, I'm good again. I always held a job. My kids always got fed. I was a functional alcoholic. And so the last straw was in 2015. We were over at my daughter's house and we had some wine and we came home and I don't know, I sat up in bed and next thing I know I passed out. And so I fell off our bed. We have a really high bed. Broke my neck, had a C5, C6 spinal cord injury, was centimeters from being paralyzed.
From your bed?
Yes.
You got home.
Got home. We got in the bed. I remember my husband saying, Molly, you were sitting up like at the edge of the bed, getting ready to maybe say something. And next thing you know, he said, you just went down. So, and my bed was pretty high. And so I knew when I hit, I was drunk. And so I was just like, oh, wow, that really hurt. And so I laid there for like hours. And my daughter's a nurse. And so she came over and said, Mom, maybe you ought to go get it checked out. Well, I'm just thinking, oh, I probably just sprained my neck. So I went 11 days with this injury.
You're tough. I'm telling you, once I knew you said you worked at the correctional facility and then you work with, I'm like, what?
Yeah, I went 11 days and then finally I ended up going to Parsons and they did an x-ray and they found out it was a spinal cord injury and he said, we need to transport you like immediately. Where do you want to go?
Wow.
So I said Wichita and people were there who had the same injury I did and I had a long talk with God and I said, if you let me walk out of here, I will never touch it again. And since April 5th, 2015, God. I absolutely will not. No. So I hate to say it. I tried many times to stop.
Yeah.
And I couldn't. And so it took this accident that I either had a choice. I was either like, and I believe God puts you in pivotal situations. Like he doesn't do this to you, but he's like, you need to slow down. You need to slow down and smell the roses or you can go on your own.
Yeah, it goes back to Romans. It's Romans where Paul is writing this letter to the Romans, and he says, God will honor what you decide to honor, but you will reap whatever you honored over.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah. So it's like Paul was telling him, like, hey, you're going to choose to do whatever you want, and God is going to be like, do you? It's almost like parenting, Like, you tell your kid, don't go that way, don't touch the stove, don't touch the stove, and the kid is like, I told you not to touch it, and then they touch it, and they go, ow, and then God is like, are you ready now? Like, that's just why I was trying to avoid. So
it is tough. It is hard to get over, and I hate to say this, but I don't know that I would have stopped had this not happened to me, And I'm very glad it did. I'm so glad it did, because I just and I don't have anything against people who drink. I'm around people who drink. I think people can have healthy relationships with alcohol.
Yeah.
I just wasn't one of them.
Yeah.
And so.
And that's what I believe. The same thing. I believe that there's people that could drink and just keep it cordial, keep it just, and then there's people obviously that abuse it.
Yeah.
My story is similar. I used to drink whiskey. Obviously I didn't break my neck, but to me I was using alcohol to escape. Yeah. I was using the dark liquor to escape pain or whatever. But in fact, my wife and I were talking about yesterday. I was driving and she was like, because we saw a liquor store that was hidden, and I go, that's the liquor store I used to go when I was in college because it was hidden from everybody, so the coaches wouldn't get me. And she's like, why did you do it? And I was like, man, I think I just wanted after Friday night games, Saturday night games, I just wanted the week to start so that I could just go back. And I was talking about how, like, you know, it was just an escape for me.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't for enjoyment. For me, it was more of an escape. It was kind of, and that's why I decided to, I don't want to, I became challenging. I was like, I want to face whatever it is I'm trying to escape. And,
I brought that up to say, when you asked me who is Molly outside of, you know, I used to love to vacation. I used to love to go, like, we'd go to Vegas every year and we'd do all these things, but it's, I would be lying if I said it's hard to be sober and vacation and have fun. And I don't want to say that you can't have fun, because I do have fun. I just think now, like, Tony and I were sitting here and we're like, where do you want to go vacation this summer? And I'm like, I don't know. What do we, you know? Yeah. And I'm okay with it. I'm fine with it. I mean, it's funny how you do live a sober life and you're in Vegas. It's like, oh,
it is kind of like an awkward.
Did I act like that, Tony? He's like, oh yeah. I was like,
did.
Okay.
It's funny because my wife and I, when we were in Vegas, it was the same thing. We were like, everybody was like, ooh, loopy, and then I was like, I can't believe that.
I know.
We at one point looked foolish, like, you know.
Yes.
But it's crazy to call it like that, but it is what it is. So you overcame addiction. Unfortunately, it wasn't like, oh, just one day I woke up out of bed and I just.
Right.
But you went through a situation. You're like, this is it. I'm done. I'm not gonna drink anymore. So now that obviously you're sober, you work with victims. What wakes you up in the morning? Every morning you wake up. What wakes you up? What wakes you up in the morning? What gets you out of bed? What motivates you?
Oh, sorry. It's tough. I'm still lay there and I'm like, it's 8:20. I need to really get out.
I gotta get out. Yeah.
Just the fact that I can. You know, just the fact that I can. Because I just keep thinking back to that time on April 5th. Like, I could be paralyzed.
Wow.
Like, you know, and I just.
And it was in April?
April 5th. It was Easter. April 5th of 2015. Yeah.
So you're in 2016, so it's been 5 years or something?
No, 2015.
2015.
Yes, I've been sober since 2015. But yeah, it was even not funnier, but we just realized that my dad, 28 years before that, was killed in a one-vehicle accident under the influence of alcohol. And then 28 years from that is alcohol damaged and destroyed me. So
you
it's
broke
almost
that
like,
generational
yeah,
curse.
It's almost like alcohol took my dad, but it kind of saved me at the same time. So
yeah, I believe that there's generational
right.
curses that you
7 years.
Yeah. That you break, and I think God chose a tough one. He's like, I know who's gonna break this habit.
Yeah,
that's pretty dope. That's pretty cool. So your dad passed away from like a DUI or like a
he was in a one vehicle accident. Thank God, it wasn't anybody else that got hurt, and my mom was following him at the time
to make sure he got home safe.
Yeah. And you know, it's one of those days where you're like, we've seen him way worse.
Yeah, we see that a lot in the big city. That's why I was like, making sure he gets home safe or parks the car safe, and then in an instant.
Yeah.
So what wakes you up in the morning is the fact that you can. That's deep. That's
deep. The fact that I can wake up and I'm breathing and everybody's healthy, and I'm just like, I just thank God every day. I thank God every day when I wake up and every night when I go to bed. And sometimes I forget at night and I wake up and I'm like, you know, I really did think that last night, you know, and I fell asleep sometimes in the middle of my praying and I'm like, oh no.
Have you ever had a To The Brim moment, which talking to you, obviously you have had a couple of those, but To The Brim moment, it's like a moment where you knew you had to start doing things with excellence. Like you stopped letting life live you and you started living life. Have you ever had like
I think all the situations that I've had happen to me, it was, I think, God trying to slow me down, because I'm always on the move. I'm always fast. I'm always
go.
Yeah, I'm always thinking 5 steps ahead of everybody else. And so it was like, just stop, just enjoy what's going on in life. Don't worry about, you know, because I'm one of those, I got to be at the game early. I got to make sure we all have our seats. I got to, you know, like I'm already thinking about Easter. Like I'm like, my mom's coming, where's the chairs going to be? And they're all like, just chill, because my whole family's chill. My whole family is just, they're as laid back.
Yeah, well, your son, I think he's 26, he's super laid back.
Oh, yes. He's just like his dad.
Every time I talk to him, he's like smooth with his talk. Yeah. And I sometimes am like, is he hearing me? Is he like, is he that smooth? Because Tony is the same way. Yeah. Tony is
absolutely. They just roll with the punches, you know. Me, I always got to have things. So like about 6 months ago, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to slow down. I'm just going to, you know what, if we're late, we're late. I'm not going to worry about it. You know, if Tony's frying the chicken for Thanksgiving and half of it's burning and we're going to be really an hour late, I'm not going to worry about it anymore. Because it was always, I'd be on edge and I'd be yelling at him and that whole anxiety, and then the whole house would be up and uproar, and I'm like, Molly,
what's up? Yeah.
So it's all right. So yeah.
I like that. So what would you, what advice would you give somebody who's listening to this, who's feeling that pressure of life and feeling like they have to be in that place.
Just enjoy today, you know, and if you're gracious enough and God wakes you up tomorrow, enjoy it tomorrow. Don't worry about what comes tomorrow. Just enjoy today. Enjoy your people, man, because life is so short. People just, you know, things happen, and, you know, you hear more and more people like younger, like passing away, and it's like, wow, you know. So I would just say, enjoy today, enjoy the moment. Don't worry about the small stuff, you know, and like spill on the rug. It's like, okay, spill. Now I'm not, so I want to be there, but I would just say, you know, enjoy today.
Enjoy. I think I'm still stuck on the fact that you fell out your bed. Something that people could probably like.
Oh, absolutely.
To me, it's because I'm a deep thinker. So I'm thinking like how for granted you could take life, that even when you go to bed thinking everything's going to be okay, I'm just going to go back. I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and be okay. And then 11 days later, the doctors are like, yeah, you need to go get surgery. Yeah. So I think that's powerful for the viewers and listeners who are watching this. Like you said, just enjoy the day. Don't be so hostile. Don't be such in a place of hurry that you forget to enjoy the life you have. And
I do want to say, I was talking about my daughter's father. I do want to say it took me a long time to forgive him.
Yeah.
But I do want to say that I did forgive him, and
that's good.
He actually got his life together finally.
Come on. Yeah.
And but he ended up passing away in a car wreck.
Oh man.
So, but yeah, I didn't want to leave on a note that because I believe everybody can change, and I believe forgiveness. You know, it doesn't come overnight, but eventually you have to say, you know, I did, and it took me a long time to forgive him, but I did, and we.
So now that you say that, what would you tell somebody who is struggling to forgive an offender?
Ooh, because I have actually had victims tell me, Molly, I can't forgive him, so I know I'm not going to heaven. And I'm like, oh. So I just immediately say, you know what? That's between you and God. Don't feel like that. Don't believe that.
Don't believe that lie.
Yeah. You know, and it does. And some people, I think that they get to a place where they don't forgive. And it's tough because a lot of them struggle with that. They can't forgive. And I just say, you know, talk to God about it. Talk to God. He'll know. He knows where your heart is.
Yeah.
The fact coming out of your mouth might not feel good to say, I forgive him. Yeah. You know, but it just, I think when we talk to victims, we're like, you're carrying that. Like, don't let that carry you. Like, just, you know, you don't have to like him. You don't ever have to see him, but just forgive him and move on.
It's like they say, it's forgiveness is canceling a debt that you're not even worried about collecting.
Yes,
like it's
exactly.
Like it's for you. It's for you.
Yes.
This is a book I read on being offended, and it talks about like when you carry unforgiveness, is like you drinking poison but hoping the other person dies.
Yes. That's it's exactly what my supervisor has used that too before.
Yeah, he's like, you're drinking poison and nobody. Because when I was abused at 8 years old, and I remember when I was a kid, it was like a female family relative, and I never thought it affected me because when I spoke about it, people laughed it off. Like, oh man,
yes,
because you're a boy, you know, that's normal. Like you became a man.
Yes.
And in my head, I was just like, no, bro, like it was disturbing.
Yes.
Like, and so I grew up a life that I was very like very like with women, I had trust issues. Like I didn't want to, you know, I was like, I don't trust, like, you know what I mean? You stay that way, I stay my way. And and I remember when I first got saved, one of the things God made me do was literally park my car. And he said, I need you to forgive everybody. And I was like, but I can't. He goes, I know you can't, but in Christ you can. And it was in that forgiveness that Christ gave me for my sins that I was able to reach out and forgive those who offended me. Yes. And one of the things is that I've always felt like, oh, I need to call them and tell them I forgave them. And it was like, no, you don't have to call them. You're forgiving them when you forgive yourself. Yep. Because they don't have to accept your forgiveness. Right. Like you forgive because you're being set free from it. So I like how you stopped the pod to say, hey, I forgave. Yes, I like that because it's real, because I'm pretty sure there's probably watchers and viewers from the earlier. They're probably like, did she ever forgive? Did she ever? So I'm glad that you brought that to the full circle, because I want people to understand that you every story you have in life, every challenge and opportunity you have, there's some chapters that close like that. There's some chapters that you could, hey, it gets better. You know, it gets you. You overcome. You forgive. So with that being said, Molly Turner. Now that we know you're an amazing mother, an amazing grandmother, uh, an amazing follower of Christ Jesus, because your faith, I see it in you. The fact that you're helping people
Right.
that are in a place that is not comfortable to help out, and you're real. I'm talking to you, and I'm like, I love how genuine and real you are. What keeps your rhythm in life? Is it discipline or habits?
Probably discipline.
Could you tell the viewers what is discipline to you?
Discipline to me would be like, well, first of all, my discipline has to be like, I don't even want to crave alcohol. Like, I don't want to, for a while, now I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. You know, before it was like, ooh, you're having mimosas? Wow, I really liked mimosas. You know, and so it's discipline as far as just like, you know, don't even, you know, I gotta not, it's not that I can't think about it, but just like summer was tough. Summer was hard. Because that's where we all just, you know, in the social event.
And how the sun is out,
yeah, and the social event.
Around everybody.
Yeah, and just, so I just got to stay my ground and discipline as far as food goes. I mean, I'm a sugar junkie now.
Hey, you preaching, come on.
I never craved sugar until I quit drinking.
One of my doctors are going to comment on that. You heard that, Mo? You better discipline.
That's tough. That's hard.
I'm the same way when it comes to food. Not necessarily with alcohol anymore, or none of the other like things like that. But for food, I like that's one of the things I had to discipline, because I think we could always, and this is one of the things that I'm passionate about talking, because we always want to say like alcohol is the only addiction, or drug substance is the only addiction.
Right.
But you could be addicted to food, you could be addicted to sugar, pop,
yes.
You could be addicted to shopping, you could be addicted to so many things.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's why I love the fact that you said discipline, because discipline will keep you accountable.
Yes.
When you feel like like taking that mimosa, when you feel like eating that extra burger patty on your burger that has bacon and cheese in it. Y'all see, the reason why y'all don't know the passion behind burgers is because y'all be eating seedy burgers. Y'all eat one of these Kansas farm fed cattle. I don't know what they put in these cows, but they be good. You would know the struggle. But I love that you said discipline, because discipline keeps you accountable to yourself. It's almost like the you know better kind of like mindset. Because I've been there when it comes to like, we one time visited Miami, and I took my wife to the hood, and we went into one of our friends' house, and it was a trap house. And once I walk in there, we keep it, you know, transparent here. Don't worry. He's a pastor. Why is he talking like that? Because Jesus saves people like me. And I remember walking into this house, and it like brought me to like this nostalgic moment to like when I used to live in a trap house.
Yeah.
And it just smelled like marijuana. It was just, I was like, and my wife, obviously, she's like, what is that smell? Oh my gosh. It smells like a skunk in here. And I was like, yeah, it's a whole bunch of skunks in here. and it was cool, because over the journey of life, I was able to develop that discipline where I was able to disassociate the desire for it and go back to my discipline for it. Like, I was able to relate to the people that are in it, but not not compromise.
Right.
The it smells like, you know, it was able to like, oh wow. And I think that's so cool about your story, is that God is using everything you walk through in life that at one season was painful, but God says, I'm turning every painful story into a blessed story, like a blessing. And I think it's so cool that's what I love about Jesus is that he takes people with a background that nobody could imagine, and turns them into Paul's, people who triumph over them, and be like, hey, I feel your pain. I can relate to what you're going through. I've been there. Because I would have never guessed it. Yeah. Molly Turner had that. I would have never guessed your story. Now I know why Tracy invited you here, because I remember when she told me your name, I was like, you talking about Coach Turner's wife? Because I'm like, she's always smiling. Like, I'm like, I thought I was I talked to you and you were going to be like, life is great. It's just sunshines and rainbows. I've been like that since I was. So when you say all that stuff, and you're like, I work with victims of this, I'm like, you work with victims? I'm like, you ain't scared? Like, you know. So I think it's amazing, and that's why To The Brim exists, because we want people to understand, like, hey, you develop excellence, you develop that discipline, you develop that through life and the journey you take in life. So with that being said, I want to thank you for being real, being encouraging, and being the person you are, because I think it's dope. I'm like really in shock. Like you have me lost for words. Like I'm like, she really could take on anybody. Like you really like ain't scared. Like you said correctional facility. I'm like, I'm not going to no, bro. I barely like going into Walmart because you never know. And you out here talking about I'm gonna go sit with the victims and the offenders. So I want to thank you on behalf on just thank you for.
That's
for
what
your
made
service.
me. That's what I think drew me and Tony to come here. Is you were so real. And when I don't think Tony came to me the first time I came, but I came up and I was like, you gotta come. You're gonna like this one. He's like, wait, I know him. And I was like, you
oh snap, no.
Yes. And I think that's what's so real is you didn't come from a white picket fence background either.
Yeah.
You know, and I think one of your sermons when I was here, you were like, you know, I wasn't always saved. And I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. And I think when you walk into church and you feel like this is your church home.
Yeah.
This is it. And my husband, man, I'm telling you, he's always believed in God, but he loves it. Like, I remember one time we were going to KU women's game and it was on Sunday and I said, well, we can listen to it online. I hate that, but we can do it. And then that night he said, nope, let's go. And then we'll go right after and I thought,
what?
Yeah, so.
Praise God.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Praise God, because that's our goal is to make people excited about church again. You know, we want to preach the truth. We don't want to compromise the truth. We don't want to sugarcoat the truth, but we want people to know that we're real human beings that are trying to figure it out, and we're letting God help us along the journey. So thank you for that. Appreciate you. Thank you for coming on To The Brim. I'm excited for the people to hear this episode. Remember that now you could go on Spotify. You could save our podcast. You could subscribe to it on YouTube, and you could follow along the journey. I promise you she'll be back on To The Brim again. I believe she has more wisdom to share on different subjects. But for now, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. See you guys. Mari, say it.
See ya.